everybody. I'm Deborah Pegues. Welcome to Winning with Deborah, where people turn to learn. Each week, we seek to gain from the experience and knowledge of believers who can help you succeed relationally, physically, emotionally, financially, and of course, spiritually. We want you to be informed and transformed as you learn how to apply the Bible to every aspect of your life. It's more important than ever that Christians model the lifestyle that God requires of his children. That's what my special guest is here to talk about today. Phil Cooke. He's an internationally known filmmaker, writer, and media consultant. He has produced media programming in more than 60 countries through his company, Cooke Pictures. He's created and produced some of the most successful Christian and inspirational TV programs in history. He's written several books. His latest book is The Way Back: How Christians Blew Our Credibility and How We Can Get It Back. It challenges Christians to confront the real reasons our faith is losing influence in the culture. He and his co-author, marketing expert Jonathan Bach, have uncovered some alarming statistics about Christian behavior, and people are buzzing about it worldwide. He's here to tell us how we can make a difference in how we Christians are perceived in the culture and how we can better represent the kingdom. Phil, welcome to
Thank you.
With Deborah.
I'm thrilled to be here. This is fun. I have an awesome family. My wife, Kathleen, we met in college. The only reason she went out with me is because when I called her for the date, she thought I was somebody else. And it wasn't until I showed up that she realized, oh, it's that Phil. That's before iPhones, so she didn't know. And she was smitten, pretty quick, and we ended up getting married. We have 2 daughters. I would like a son, but the risk of 3 daughters was too great, so we quit. But they're terrific. They're grown. One lives in New York. One lives in Los Angeles. So I have an incredibly wonderful family.
And you got grandkids.
Got 2 grandkids, boy and a girl. Yeah, terrific.
Is that more fun than children?
You know what? I'll tell you this. There's a reason we have kids in our 20s. I love my grandkids, but after a day of playing with them, I'm ready to give them back. They wear you out. It's amazing.
I see pictures and you guys are having a lot of fun.
Oh, they're great.
What was your journey to the Lord?
My dad was a pastor, Charlotte, North Carolina. Grew up a preacher's kid. I mowed the cemetery behind the church, and I probably poured 10,000 communion cups over the years. But it was a little church outside of Charlotte, and my family were Christians my whole life. I didn't know anything different. I went down and accepted Christ when I was young, but I've just not known what anything different would be. I never really rebelled. So my whole life has been, now I haven't always been the kind of Christian I probably should be, but I've always really known Jesus. It's been a remarkable thing.
Well, that's why you have such a solid background. You didn't just jump into this thing.
True, true.
Oh, that's great. Now, you spent most of your life being a television producer.
Yeah.
And yet you spend most of your time advising pastors on how to engage with the media. Now, why in the world do you do that?
Well, it's great. That's a question I ask myself late at night quite often. No. You know what? I noticed that with my father, I never had a shred of a moment's desire to preach myself. But I discovered early on that I could produce a television program, one program that would reach more people than my father reached during his entire ministry. And so I've always had a heart for helping Christians be understood in the culture, get our message out there in a more powerful way. So we live in a media-driven culture today, and I think if the church does not know how to learn how to use media, we're going to lose this generation.
Are you the only one in that space? Because I mean, for the most part, you're kind of like the it.
Well, I may have started as the only one in that space. There are others, but I go back a long way.
Yeah, you do.
And I started working with Oral Roberts back in the 70s when he was doing primetime television specials when I was a college student. Wow. And so I've just always had a heart to help pastors share their message more effectively through the media.
Well, see, now, let me just tell you, I used to struggle with this idea of trying to get more media because I didn't want to call attention to myself.
Yeah.
And, and I thought that maybe this whole focus on the media is what has led to this celebrity spirit you find in the church. Speak to that.
Well, it's something we struggle with every day. It's true. I think that in many ways this celebrity thing has taken over the church just the way it's taken over Hollywood and other places. So we have to understand that media is a tool. You know, if you study the life of Jesus, he spent his life where the people were. In those days it was the temple square, it was the marketplace, it was social gatherings like weddings. Guess what? Today the people are on social media, or they're watching television, or they're in movie theaters. So if we're going to do what Jesus did, I think we need to embrace the media and really tell our story in that way.
So when they call you, you know, every business solves a problem. What
Yep.
what do people what problem are you going to solve for the pastors?
In most cases, it's how do I get my message out there in a bigger way? How do I reach a larger audience? How do I make a bigger impact? And obviously, they're good at reaching the people in the four walls of their church and sometimes beyond. But our team comes in to show them how to even take that impact to a much greater level through television, through film, through short films, through social media, the web, so many other tools that can be powerful.
But are they ready for the cost of doing that in a really big way?
Sometimes yes, sometimes no. Sometimes it's a shock. But, you know, there's so many other things. The website, you know, here's a funny thing, Deborah. I discovered that virtually 100% of new visitors to your church will check you out online before you come. So why is your website so terrible? You know, in many ways, your website is the single greatest reason people choose to come visit your church. So, and it's very simple today and very cheap to do a great website. So I think just understanding that tools like that are really vital makes pastors and leaders realize I need to get involved in that and tell my story.
You advise some of the, you know, premier ministries. So that means, does that mean you're not available to it? We're not trying to get clients, but you wouldn't be the guy that the little church who has 50 members would call.
You know what? To a great degree, that's true. However, we have a team that works with a lot of churches of all sizes. I speak at a lot of conferences and events, and I speak at a lot of churches. And so there's a lot of ways in my blog at philcooke.com is a great way to get a lot of my teaching.
Too.
Well, thank
Great
you.
blog.
I appreciate it.
Yes.
So there's a lot of ways even a small ministry or small pastor can learn from what we're doing.
And then you took this divergence of action, of path, when you wrote this book the way
did,
back.
yeah.
I'm like, that has nothing really to do with what you've been about.
Yes and no.
Okay. So
you know, part of what I do is because I'm so focused on the media, I've always been really fascinated with how we engage the culture. We need to, and the truth is, in the last 30 years, think about it. Have we moved the dial in a positive way on any social issue whatsoever? I can't think of a single one where the church has really made positive changes in the culture.
Oh, ouch, Phil. That
Yeah,
hurts.
absolutely.
That's
and
reality.
so,
That's our reality.
Pretty much. And so the question is, what have we done in the past? We boycotted. You know, if you don't say Merry Christmas instead of Happy Holidays, we're not going to buy your coffee. So we boycott your company, or we boycott a movie studio because we don't like the movies they're making. Guess what? Hasn't made any difference at all. None whatsoever. So, or we do petition drives to try to, you know, send thousands of letters to a TV network to tell them we don't like their program. That doesn't. I talked to a TV executive the other day, and I mentioned Christians, and he said, "Oh, I know Christians. They're the angry people. They're the people that get upset."
That's wrong.
So that's how the culture looks at us. So we started looking. My co-writer Jonathan Bach and I started discussing. What have we done wrong, and what do we need to fix if we're going to change our perception in the culture? Because as you know, nobody's going to accept Christ unless they start thinking, I want to be like those people. I want to have a positive perception of those guys.
Right.
And so that's really the focus of the book. What went wrong, and how do we change course, and what do we do?
You know, I found this interesting, and I can't wait for your answer because I asked you to submit to me a
Sure.
scripture that we could use as the foundation for our
Yes.
discussion, and you said Genesis 1 and 1. I'm like, okay, Phil, what do you mean by that?
Well, in the beginning, God created. You know, we forget sometimes that God, he could have introduced himself in a lot of ways, but in the very first verse of the Bible, he introduced himself as a creator. And we forget very often that we're created in his image, and we need to raise the bar when it comes to creativity in our culture. We just don't, the church historically has not put a lot of effort. Now, if you go back to the Middle Ages, maybe, yes, Christian leaders understood the power of creativity, the Michelangelos of the world, the Leonardo da Vinci's of the world. But today, the church has really lost a vision for creativity, and I just think we need to be reminded very often that God is a creator God, and he wants us to really raise the bar in how we engage the culture. And in many ways today, creativity is the currency of the culture, and that's a powerful way.
Well, it is, and you talk a lot in the book about how we have kind of gone off course in our behavior.
Right.
Were you fascinated by some of the research?
Oh, it's ugly. I'll tell you, it's ugly. For instance, we went to 4 of the largest researchers in the country, and we decided maybe we should start at how Christians live our lives. Let's take a look at that. And we studied the 20% of people out there that show up in church every week.
Only 20%?
Well, yeah, only 20%. Yeah, there's 78% say there's a God, but only 20% actually show up on a regular basis. So we looked at that 20%. Here's what we found out. We found out that 40% of the people in the pews today read the Bible once a month or never. Once a month or never. We found out, say, church attendance. The bar is so low on church attendance now, you show up just 19 times a year and you're considered a regular. A regular. 19, that's like 3 out of 8 Sundays.
But
You're
wait,
considered
stop
a regular.
right there. Why do you think people aren't going to church?
Oh, there's a lot of reasons, I think. A lot of reasons. Bible reading is another horrible, you know.
Okay.
Oh, well, let me give you this one.
Okay.
Let's talk about prayer for a minute.
Oh.
We discovered that 63% of people, of church-going people, think prayer is important. We thought that's good, right?
Okay.
Then we realized the flip side means 37%, more than a third of church-going Christians, don't believe prayer is important. So we wonder why we're not making a bigger impact. And by the way, tithing is brutal. Less than 10% actually give 10%.
Yeah.
So the bottom line is what we discovered is we would go out and ask people, what do you think of Christians? And you know, what they should have said was the fruit of the Spirit. They should have noticed, you know, patience, kindness, long suffering. They should talk about the fruit of the Spirit. What we discovered was words like hypocrite, phony, power hungry, fake. And we discovered that when we really looked at how we live our lives and how poorly we do, they're exactly right. When they talk about us being hypocrites, they're exactly right. When they talk about us being phony, they're exactly right. And so that was the shock for us, that, you know, we have the nerve to get mad at Hollywood or the gay community or some other community for the way they live their lifestyle when we're not living the lifestyle God's called us to live.
And you're carrying this message around the world. I have a roll in from this message you preached in Australia.
New Zealand, yeah.
Is it New Zealand?
New Zealand, yeah.
Yeah, let's take a look.
So what we discovered is when it comes to the way the world looks at us, we may get mad at the gay community, or we may get mad at Hollywood, or the transgender crowd, whatever crowd of the day it is that we want to get upset at. We started thinking, wait a second, the names that they call us, hypocritical, phony, judgmental, are exactly right. They're exactly right. We discovered the bottom line is, the greatest challenge to Christianity today is not the rise of secularism. It's not radical Islam. It's not the gay community or Planned Parenthood. The greatest threat to Christianity in the world today is Christians, because we're not living the life that actually God has called us to live. I don't know if that deserves applause or not, but it's horrifying. Let me tell you this, Christians today have become the fat guy in the gym that lectures everybody else about health. You know that guy, right? Yeah, we discovered that, you know, working out is really hard. Wearing yoga pants is pretty easy. And most Christians today are simply wearing yoga pants. And we wondered, how did we get this way? Where did this come from? What happened? Well, we discovered something interesting. We believe that we have become the greatest and most sophisticated idol makers in the history of the world. You know, we don't think ourselves as worshiping idols. We look at the Israelites back in the Old Testament and the book of Exodus and think, those guys were idiots. What were they thinking? And I know when Pastor Mark goes on vacation, you guys don't build a golden calf in the lobby of the church, right? But you know what we discovered? We discovered that we've kind of molded God into our own image. We worship a God that looks a lot like the God of the Bible, but this God understands why we don't have time to come to church. We're busy. He gets that. He understands why we don't have time to read the Bible, because we've got our career, we're studying, we're trying to move up the ladder at work. We've got other things to do, but this God understands that. This God understands why I'm cheating on my wife, because she's gotten kind of old and grumpy, and after all, this God wants me to be happy, right? We discovered that most Christians today have fashioned God out of their own lifestyle instead of conforming our lives to fit the life that God's called us to live.
Wow, Phil, you're pretty passionate about this subject.
I am totally. It's gotten a good reception so far.
Well, I can see why. But you talk about the fact that we need to be examples and all that.
Yeah.
Is that a pipe dream? Was that ever a time when the church was engaging with the
Well,
culture?
it's interesting. When we were writing, we thought, when was the church doing well? The truth is, even today, I'm sure people watching the program, there's many others who are living the life God called us to live.
Right.
However, when was a time when the church as a whole was making a really noticeable impact in the culture? And we had to go all the way back to the early church, to the days of ancient Rome. And what we discovered was very, very interesting. We discovered that back in those days, the church had no power, no authority. They were being persecuted, hunted down. They were in hiding most of the time. So when they saw something they didn't like, they couldn't pass a law. They couldn't picket. They couldn't boycott. They couldn't complain. What could they do? They only could act. So for instance, infanticide, killing babies, killing newborn babies was so common in the Roman Empire. They had no regard for life. Sounds like our culture today. That one of the books we read was by a scholar who said that Romans didn't even name their children for 10 or 12 days after they were born because they needed that time to decide if they wanted to keep it or not.
Oh.
And they would take the baby onto the city wall or out in a field beyond the city and leave it to die of exposure. And it was so incredibly common, nobody thought twice about it in those days. But the church hated it, but they couldn't change anything. So they would go out under cover of night and take in these abandoned infants. And they would bring them into their family and raise them as their own. And other church members would contribute money to help raise that child. The Romans had no concept why anybody would do this. They could not wrap their head around, why would we've discarded that baby. Why would somebody raise that? Why would they keep it? And historians today, looking back, and there were other things. When the plague hit, for instance, Romans were famous for getting out of town as fast as they could. But these crazy Christians would go to ground zero of the plague, minister to people they didn't even know at the risk of their own life. One emperor wrote that Romans are the ultimate cowards, but these Christians are the bravest people I've ever met.
So we distinguished ourselves with our service,
Because
our
of what we
love.
did, exactly right. And so what historians today tell us is that the Roman Empire fell to a great degree because they just could not, they were so baffled, they were so astonished, it forced them to rethink who these people are and who is this God they serve. And that's what started to change and shift in the Roman Empire. So, my question in the book is, what are the things, nothing's worked so far. Boycotts don't work, complaining doesn't work, griping doesn't work. What are the things we could do today that would so astonish this culture?
Yeah.
It would force them to rethink who we are
Yes.
and who is this God we talk about all the time.
Great, tell us.
And so, well, we gave 7 or 8 illustrations of the book, and we encourage people that read to come up with their own ideas because we can all make some kind of an impact. And some are small and personal, others are big. Let me give you a big one. Foster care. We discovered that the statistics surrounding foster care are horrible. There's some wonderful, wonderful foster parents doing amazing work, but it's an overwhelming negative thing. I mean, the statistics, something like 1% of foster care kids ever finish college. Most of them perpetuate the cycle and continue for other generations. And we realized there's 350,000 foster care kids in America, and we thought, well, that's an overwhelming problem. And then it dawned on us, there's 300,000 churches in America.
Wow.
Well, what if every church in America decided to take 1 kid? And bigger churches could take 2, maybe 3. We could literally, in a year, wipe out the need for foster care in this country. And what would the world think? They may hate Christians, but they would have to acknowledge these people just did something amazing.
And I heard that the majority of the prison population is made up of foster care.
That sounds right. That sounds really right. And
the thing.
so things like that we could do that I think would just force even raging non-believers to look at us in a different way.
I think we've been so busy talking about what we're against,
Well, that's a big part of it.
we don't talk about what we're for.
So true,
Yeah,
so true.
And you talk about the fact in the video about what the fruit of the Spirit are,
Yes.
the various fruits, and how we are known for being complete opposite of that.
Yeah, you're exactly right.
So you and Kathleen and some couples in your community, you started something that would show some unusual love at Christmas time. Tell us about
Well,
that.
my co-writer Jonathan Bach and his wife Kelly, about 8 years ago, started this little thing where they put an ad in Craigslist, the online want ads, about a week before Christmas. And it simply said, if you're struggling to make Christmas work for your family, if you can't afford it for your kids, just let me know. I'd like to help. And I think some people probably thought he was crazy or, some nut. But 4 women responded, single moms. And he said, meet us at Target, public place, in a big Target here in Los Angeles. Meet us there. And he and his wife Kelly got grocery carts, and they filled them with toys and clothes and gave them each a $100 gift card for food. And completely transformed their Christmas. And the next year he called my wife Kathleen and I said, I want you to do this with us. So then the next year we got more. And so this past Christmas we had 15 people, all from the entertainment industry who were Christians, producers and actors and writers and directors. We all met at Target. He'd put the ad in, and we had about 15 couples or single moms. Some were grandparents raising their kids. Yeah. And we met them at Target, and we divided them all up. We each took a family, and we went through. And over this 8 years that we've been doing it, we've gotten letters that are just absolutely amazing. They always send us pictures of Christmas morning, and they always leave in tears, and we always pray with them. And it's not like we're trying to witness to them, but they all ask, why do you do this? In fact, we've done it for so many years now, the Target employees are getting wise, and they'll come up to us and say, look, we see you people here every Christmas. What are you doing? We get to share Christ with them. So it's just little things like that. And think of it's so simple, but if every Christian in America did something like that,
Yes.
how would that change people's
Something,
perception?
yeah, and we can come up with ideas.
Oh,
Somebody
yeah.
may say, I don't know what you just talked about. Listen, we have the spirit of the Creator in
That's
us.
right.
He'll give us an idea.
Well, I have a friend in the UK, J. John, evangelist. He said, you want to be a missionary? Great, go next door. It's so easy to start. It doesn't have to be a big worldwide ministry.
Yeah.
We could just start next
Well,
door.
you know, and I like the fact it doesn't have to be a lot. For my birthday, and my husband did it for one of our milestone birthdays.
Yeah.
We just had everybody make checks to World Vision.
There you go.
And,
True.
you know, and I have a burden to see women become entrepreneurs. And so we said, make it to that program just so that we can help women entrepreneurs and change
Yeah.
their community.
Oh,
'Cause you
yeah.
can do all kinds of things.
Well, I challenge people, you know, again, I've got a friend that just woke up one morning and realized, I don't know most of the people on my block, on my street. So he decided, let's have a block party. And you know what? Every single person came.
Wow.
And they all got to know each other. They've all got to be friends. They've all got to share Christ with everybody. And it started to transform his little neighborhood. And it was so easy to throw a party. Who doesn't want to come to a party? How easy is that?
That's
And
good.
so I think we sometimes think witnessing is so hard, sharing our faith is so difficult, when honestly, it's not as difficult as people
Now,
think.
what could a church do? And if you don't want to answer that
No.
question, I want to know what really vexes you about the church right now, and the church in general, because I know you'll tell me.
Well, no, I think we're playing with this. I think
Okay.
the stakes are incredibly high. And I think that church is not as serious as it could be. Obviously, you know, I don't want to offend anybody because
Right.
I think there are plenty of churches doing amazing things and
Absolutely.
we have the opportunity to work with them. However, when you look at the statistics of how the average church member is living their life, we're not reading the Bible, we're not spending time in prayer, we're not giving, we're not supporting the work of God, we're not showing up at church even. And you know, how many times do we say, well, you know, I haven't found the church because I haven't found one that really meets my needs. Well, how about you going to meet the needs of the church? We've got it all backwards. It's like entertainment today.
Well, Phil, I want to know what you think about churches who don't require people to assemble necessarily. You know, it's like electronic church; you just send in your tithes. Well, how do you reconcile that with not forsaking the assembling of yourselves together?
Yeah, well, you know, it's interesting. Because we work in this technology field, our company, we're always wrestling with these issues. And we have a lot of churches that are extremely successful at live streaming. I know a pastor in Oklahoma has 700 people in his church, 10,000 watch him every Sunday online. So that's a good thing. And I know when my wife and I travel, we always, you know, if it's a Sunday, we'll pop open the laptop and watch our church online. But that's shouldn't be your primary source. If you have a pastor you love to hear, Jack Hayford, we were members of Jack Hayford's church for decades. I love Jack, and I will pop up, you know, and watch his old messages anytime you want. I'm a huge fan. However, I need to show up at an actual church on Sunday. I'm a big believer in that.
I think you need that support system because at our church we have really good, strong, you know, life groups and support systems. And when somebody dies, everybody just rallies to them. And I'm thinking we do that because we know that person, we see that person.
That's good.
You know, we get to hug them every Sunday and touch
That's
them.
good.
And so, you know, that's real. But before we wrap up here, we have about 3 minutes. Tell me what's next for Phil. I want to know what are you doing because you guys have the most exciting lifestyle.
Well,
Well,
part of it is we have so many great churches and ministries that we work with literally around the world that we do get to try. I walked up to LAX, the fourth busiest airport in the world the other day. I walked up to the ticket counter and the lady said, "Oh, Mr. Cooke, welcome back." And I thought, if that lady knows my name, I'm here too much. But you know, a few years ago, I got really frustrated with traveling so much. And then I realized God's called me to do this. And I have friends that are, you know, all over the world that are doing God's work. And so it's an incredible honor. So we're traveling. We're going to Portugal to speak to a pastor's conference in November. We're going in a couple weeks to Manila to speak to another pastor's conference. Have a lot of opportunities internationally to talk to pastors and church leaders about how to use the media more effectively. And we're still working on projects. The Museum of the Bible, the great new museum in D.C., they're clients of ours. We've been filming there a lot. So there's just a lot of wonderful things that I think God's put out there, and part of our problem is how do we pick what to do? Because, as I said before, the stakes are high, and I want to do the right thing for the kingdom.
Well, it sounds like you're planning to be going for the next 50 years, so there's no retirement in the forecast.
You know what? Sooner or later, I'll be a greeter at Walmart probably, but I'm not ready for that quite yet.
Now, I did allude to the fact that you had worked on several really big projects.
Yeah.
Tell us just about a few of them.
Well, over the years, we've had the opportunity to do some amazing things. Billy Graham came to us about 22 years ago. In fact, I wrote about this the other day for someone. 22 years ago, he came to us and said, create a TV special that someone who'd never in a million years would watch a Billy Graham show might watch. So we took him at his word. We created, it was like MTV crossed with Billy Graham. We opened with a guy committing suicide in front of his car. And
Wow.
it was a remarkable show. And a lot of people in the ministry were very nervous about it because they'd never done anything like this. But they aired the program in prime time worldwide. The LA Times, the newspaper, said that it reached 2.5 billion people, and it generated 1 million calls for salvation.
Wow.
1 million calls for salvation. You talk about the power of a television program. So when you do something like that, you really understand what media can do and how it can change people's lives. And so that's, you know, once I saw that, I was committed. I was in.
It's not probably not fair to ask you this question, but what is the one big thing? Because you have a book called The One Big Thing.
Yeah.
Is that what is it?
Well, one big thing, discovering what you were born to do.
That is so good.
Well,
I'm
thank
listening
you.
to the audio version.
You're
I already
very
read
kind.
the other version, but just listen to the audio version in the car. And
Yeah.
I'm really trying to stay on track with this discussion. But Phil, you got to just give us a little taste of that book, because you talked about you ask us to ask ourselves about 3 or 4 questions to really find out what our one big thing is. Can you share a couple?
Super quick, I discovered that people that really accomplish great things, that break through, are not the people that are pretty good at a lot of things. They're the people who are remarkable at one big thing. And so you need to start asking yourself questions like, what is that thing? And start looking back over your life. What's the thing you've been noticed for? What's the thing people see about you? Because sometimes we don't see it ourselves. And start to focus on that one thing. Everybody that I've discovered that is really exceptional and really makes a dent in the universe is just extraordinary at one thing. Stop trying to be good at everything, because there are things I'm terrible at. I've just learned over the years to let that go, either partner with people who are good at that, and really start focusing on that one big thing. And I think if people walk away from this program with nothing else but that understanding,
Yes.
it could potentially
And I
change
like
their
what
life.
you said about not trying to, copy somebody else.
Yeah.
Just whatever your niche is, just go for that and be the best in that space.
The narrower the niche, the better.
Yeah.
And that's I think the way to stand out and really be noticed.
So what's yours? What's your one?
I work at the intersection of faith, culture, and media. I think mine is helping people understand how to use the media to get their message to a greater audience.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
Well, listen, it's just been so great.
Oh, I loved it.
Can I thank you for just your support over the last few years? I've just only known you a few years, and let me tell you, I was so intimidated the first time I got the opportunity to sit down with you. I think like, I'm gonna sit with Phil Cooke. I'm so excited. I was so nervous I didn't even know what to ask you.
Yeah.
But thank you so much
You're
for
kind.
how you open your home and how you guys just are really having a great influence and walking the talk.
Yeah, well, thank you. That's very kind.
Thank you so much for joining this enlightening and convicting discussion on how we Christians blew our credibility and how we can get it back. I pray that every individual took this as a personal challenge and every leader as a group challenge. We can reclaim our place of moral respect in our culture. We must get back to the basic disciplines of the faith, praying fervently, reading the Bible faithfully, worshiping and fellowshipping together regularly, giving generously, and loving others unconditionally. The world needs our positive influence. I want people to desire a relationship with Jesus Christ because of what they see in me. I believe that's your desire also. And by the grace of God, we will glorify him in all that we think, say, and do. Well, that's all the time we have for today. If this program has impacted you or blessed you in any way, I would love to hear your comments. Please visit me on Facebook at Winning with Deborah or on my website, winningwithdeborah.com. And there you may read an excerpt from my book, Emergency Prayers, which includes over 100 scripture-based prayers for every adversity. The website also highlights other publications and products that will strengthen your walk in the Lord. Until next time, have a winning week.